So in this video I'm going to share with you how I deal with big cuts on a tree, when I do them and why I do them. Hey, welcome, it's Jelle from Growing Bonsai, and today I'd like to talk about ugly cuts on a tree and how to get rid of them. So this tree is a hornbeam, and do not confuse it with a beech. I'll put the leaves next to each other and you see quite clearly why they're different. The leaves of the hornbeam, they have a serrated edge, and the leaves of a beech have a smooth edge, and you see that the veins in the hornbeam leaf are much stronger than the ones in the normal beech. In any case, this tree, I got it 4 years ago, and it was when in the area somebody was taking away a full hedgerow, and I saw this big pile of hornbeams, and I stopped and I asked, what are you going to do with it? And they tossed them, they were telling me. And let's take a look at this. This stump, I shortened the stump 2 years ago, I think, in an attempt to reduce sap flow. Making big cuts on a tree means that you are going to cut down all the sap transport for a tree. For a tree, this is a very stressful moment. It can't get all the liquids moved around in the tree as it wants to. If you have a very strong branch growing and you cut it off, it is a lot of work for the tree to deal with the cut. Now that I've taken this off, this stump has dried out and the tree has rerouted a lot of the sap flow in the trunk from the roots on this side to the top instead of to the branch. Of course, there's these tiny little branches here, which I am not going to keep, but they are not enough to really make it a big deal for the tree to lose this little sub-trunk. Now, I want this to become as flat as possible. This is going to be the front of the tree, so it should be fairly smooth, but I am realistic. I'm not going to go all the way as deep as I wanted to. One of the things that happens if you do this in winter, the tree is dormant. When it is dormant, it cannot respond to the chop made, and therefore there's a big risk of dieback along the trunk. If you do this in the middle of summer, the tree is now actively growing, the roots are pushing sap up, and there's hardly any risk of dieback. But wait, you say, the tree will start bleeding. I don't know where this story comes from. Indeed, if you cut big limbs of trees in early spring, before they have leafed out, they will start bleeding quite a bit. But if you do it in the middle of summer, when the trees are in full leaf, there is no risk of the tree bleeding out. It is warm, the trees are growing, and you'll see within a couple of days that the tree is starting to create wound colors, and the wounds are starting to grow back together. Okay, this is a lot more than I thought. Let me get a saw. I didn't really want to use a saw because you need a lot of space for a saw to operate. And there are very nice fine-tooth Japanese saws. But on a trunk like this, that's quite a lot of work. And this one makes this work quite light. What you can see is that I removed a part of the branch already before, and there's a line of wood here which is already completely dead, and this is the fresh wood where I just cut. And now I'm going to hollow this out, maybe up to this point, to get it as smooth as possible with the rest of the trunk, and then I'll cover it with cut paste to see how it heals. Covered in cut paste, and now it's a matter of letting it grow strongly and see how this grows over. So early summer is usually the time that I also prune back and wire out young growth on deciduous trees in development. For this tree I am not going to do that this year, because when you're trying to heal a scar, you want to get a lot of growth on the tree. And I want to heal the scar later on. I want a lot of growth. Easy. It is good to get the wire off. So I wired this tree out in late winter, just before the buds started to pop open. And that really is not enough to set the most aged branches. And that's one of the things I'll just have to accept for being able to remove the ugly stump. As the ugly stump will take more years to heal than the branches to set, I am accepting that the branches might come back a little bit and need to be rewired once or twice more before they finally set in their position. When unwiring a tree, it's always very nice to see how a tree develops, and in fact I'm quite happy with how this tree is developing. I am not going to wire it out. I'm going to give this tree a year to just do what it wants. I might prune back the top a little bit because I don't want it to get too heavy, but I do require a lot of sap flow between the branches and the trunk and the roots, so that callus forming takes place. This is one of the most important things to realize. When you're closing big wounds, you need a lot of growth on your tree, you need a lot of energy surplus, otherwise the tree won't have the power to close the wound. The tree will get weaker than needed, and then in fall or even in spring next year you'll see the effects, and that is when the tree will start to show fungal infections. It will be weak, and eventually the whole or part of the trunk might die off if you have done it on a weak tree. I'm getting to the point that this tree doesn't need to be wired again. Once you have your primary branches, so the branches that come directly from the trunk, and the secondary, so the branches that come directly from a primary branch, are set in place, deciduous trees like this one that backbud easily can just be developed by regular pruning, where over the course of the year you make sure you keep track of what's happening on top. You trim that back quite frequently. You let the lower branches grow a little bit longer so they can get stronger and thicker, and you just use directional pruning. If you don't know what directional pruning is, put it in a comment, then I know that I should make a video on directional pruning. Guess I need to clean up a little bit, but first a bit of fertilizer, then I'll water you and you go back to your spot. All done, don't worry.